Hi, welcome to the video for the installation of the Lee bullet feeder adapter bracket for the Dillon 450 and 550 series presses. First off, what you're going to get is a bullet feeder adapter bracket. Your safety cutoff for your powder measure is going to go here. Your Lee bullet feeder adapter bracket linkage and buffer will go through here, and this is going to mount to your ram. You're going to need a 1/4 inch wrench for taking off the through bolt for your index. You're going to need a 3/16 inch wrench for taking off the shell plate assembly from the ram, and you're going to need a 1/8 wrench for the grub screw that retains your index screw. You're also going to need some 3/8 wrenches in order to remove this assembly that comes with the Lee bullet feeder kit. And to ease assembly, you could also use a 3/8 ratchet if needed. A couple of things when choosing sizes for the Lee kits: it's determined by your bullet height and the actual caliber or diameter of the bullet. In this case here, we have one of the middle kits for the 9mm 357, which should be 0.65. So you can see a 124 grain hollow point projectile passes out just fine. This is a 147 grain. Notice it will not come out, but you can order separate dies for the different kits available. First part of installation for the bracket, you're going to want to go ahead and start by raising the ram, taking your 1/8 wrench, loosening up your grub screw. Go ahead and lower your ram. Start by taking off the shell plate index screw. Remove the screw, your index assembly, shell plate. One of the things I forgot to mention, go ahead and get a magnet. Remove your detent ball and spring. Go ahead and remove your locator pins. Set them aside. So what you want to go ahead and do next is take your 3/16 inch wrench and start by loosening the shell plate home screws. Go ahead and bring the ram up, disconnect your primer linkage. Go ahead and undo these screws. Once those are loose, go ahead and lower your ram a little bit. Turn. Remove your shell plate carrier assembly. Remove the factory safety powder bracket if equipped. Set it aside. And take your new bullet feeder adapter bracket plate, which, just to show everybody, it will line up, and the geometry is identical to the original safety powder bracket plate. Go ahead and install it to the bottom of the shell plate home. Set it in place. Go ahead and index your screws. Go ahead and start tightening those down. To begin reassembly, go ahead and take your shell plate home, assemble the bracket, go ahead and line the 2 bolt holes up, raise your ram slightly, set the shell plate in place, get your screws, start to index the screws, slowly tighten them up. Go ahead and raise your ram all the way up. Go ahead and start screwing the screws all the way down. Snug it up, pack it off a 1/4 turn. Go ahead and lower your ram. Go ahead and do a simple fill to make sure it is not rubbing the priming system. Hold it in place. Give your screw just a slight snug up. Go ahead and check it again. Make sure there's no rubbing, binding, and everything's moving nice and smooth. Alright, with that done, you can go ahead and crank down on these screws. Dillon claims you can go up to 20 foot-pounds. It's not going to hurt them, so there should be no worries about over tightening. Once that's done, go ahead and check again. Make sure there's no binding in the priming system. You can go ahead and reattach your primer linkage. Everything's moving nice and smooth. Next, what you'll want to do is go ahead and reinstall your detent ball spring and your detent ball. Since I'm going to be setting up and demonstrating for 357, we're going to go ahead and put our index in. Go ahead and start your index screw in by hand. Get it adjusted nice. And then tighten up your grub screw. That's it. Your bracket's installed. Everything's moving nice and smooth as it should. When you get the Lee bullet feeder kits, you're going to go ahead and have their guide, their buffer, and their dampening spring. What you want to go ahead and do is take your 3/8 wrench, hold it, go counterclockwise with it. Well, that came off a lot easier than I thought. You'll want to take that, keep the assembly, I'll do mine upside down, and what you're going to want to do is come over here, raise your ram up, and insert this assembly as so, to where your guide is at the top, your spring is on top of the bracket. And go ahead and start threading the buffer on. Go ahead and get your wrenches again. Hold them down. Just snug this puppy up. Once the guide and buffer assembly is installed, you want to go ahead and make sure that it moves freely. The spring's not going to bind, and none of that mess, or you will have issues. When you add the Lee bullet feeder adapter bracket, you're adding about 0.010 of an inch to your overall shell plate carrier height, which means you'll actually have to readjust your dies slightly. So what you'll do is go ahead and you do your normal die procedure, raise your ram up, tighten down, your sizing die until it just touches the shell plate. Go ahead and tighten it down. Lower your ram. Insert a case, with this being 357. Raise your ram up, size it. Proceed to the next one. Set your case. In the case of mine, my powder thrower is already preset. Go ahead and set it back down. Insert your locator. And now we'll proceed to the next step where you want to go ahead and remove that case. And now we're going to get ready to install the Lee bullet feeder kit. When you get your Lee bullet feeder kit, what you'll have inside, as always with Lee products, is a good set of instructions, diagrams, part numbers, and how to install it. There's a list of their kits with their bullet dimensions. Keep that in mind as if you need to replace your feed tubes, finger sizes, or your dies in case that you don't have multiple tool heads or setups. Also keep in mind at the directions when installing the kit. It's 3 turns from the shell plate. I've seen where a couple of people have adjusted it to where they just touch off on the case, back it off a turn or half a turn, and the die sticks too far down and it creates interference with the feeding mechanism not getting around in the shell plate, or not getting around to the shell. Also keep in mind, don't use hollow base or concave bullets. It's like stacking Legos. It's just not going to work. It is one of the downfalls of the kit, but sometimes you just have to work with what you got. But back to the kit. You'll have your linkage rod along with a bracket we took apart earlier. You actually have large and small feed tubes. And of course, the way you'll assemble this is you'll put your large feed tube, it'll actually fit on the housing here that supports your small bullet feed tube. A couple of things to note: make sure your springs are in good order. Never allow this to sit at rest all the way back. Disconnect your linkage if you're not using your press. Don't ever leave a bullet sitting in it, or what it'll do, it'll end up opening up those fingers and you'll start having bullets fall out, won't grip, they'll can't. What you can do is go ahead and take these fingers out via this screw, stick them in some boiling water, pinch them tight a little bit, and you're good to go again. A couple other things to note: you can do a little bit of drop of oil in this area here and under this side here. But you don't want to over tighten the screw, but you don't want it too loose either. What you'll want to do next is go ahead and completely undo your seating die. Go ahead and back your lock ring off, back your seating stem out. And the thing is with the dies, Lee uses this 45-degree chamfer, and that's what actually helps. Whenever the die body comes up, I'm sorry, the feed fingers come up and make contact with the die body, it'll help spread them out or won't mash them. You could possibly have your current dies turned down. Some of them, I believe, like some of the Hornady ones, will have a snap ring in the bottom. That will really be possible. But I mean, you can buy these dies complete from Lee for anywhere between $15 to $18. Give them a call, they'll sell them individually. What you want to do next Let's go ahead and take your bullet feeder kit. Go ahead and make sure this is nice and snug. You want to go ahead and take it, set it on your tool head, insert the die. Go ahead and raise the ram up. Make sure you don't smash your fingers. Go ahead and touch it to the shell plate, like so. Make a note of where the index dot is. Go ahead and back that out 3 turns. 1, 2, 3. Holding the die, go ahead and snug up your lock ring. Initial setting is to try to have this piece here at a 90-degree angle off your tool head. Once that's done, go ahead and lower your ram. Once you have your bullet feeder bracket securely attached to your die and tool head, go ahead and move your tool head. What you'll do is this hole closest to this linkage rod here, you'll go ahead and insert the actuating rod straight down. I know it's kind of hard to see in this camera, but you'll go ahead and place this rod here and this linkage to start. You may have to disconnect the feed finger linkage. Start your tool head in. Place your pins. Center this. And then go ahead and get your buffer started around your linkage rod. Make sure it's moving nice and fluid. And then reconnect your linkage for the feed fingers. You want to make sure you go all the way down on the stroke, all the way up. And make sure everything's working according to the way it needs to be. Alright, now that I've worked out the technical difficulties, I have to remember when using the Lee 357 and 38 special dies, the touch off on the shell plate and back off 3 turns rule does not apply. I was crushing cases. Late night, tired, a long weekend, my apologies. On this situation, you will touch the case mouth, back off about a turn. What you're going to want is to have a taper slightly smaller. I'm sorry, the taper barely sticking out of the tool head. You almost want it, that edge flush with the tool head. So, with that said, we should be able to go ahead and drop in some 158 grain cast Lee bullets from their bullet mold. It's already been covered in A-locks and has set probably for months. Alright, got a few in there. Now that we've got a few 158 grain cast 357 bullets covered in liquid A-locks. It's set for months. We're going to go ahead and do, when you're first starting out, let's go ahead and raise your ram, disconnect your feed finger linkage. In this case, I accidentally grabbed a bullet. Let's go ahead and pull it out. Throw it back to your tube. Start your normal loading process. Place a shell in the sizer. Raise the ram. And of course, we're only making dummy rounds here. Go ahead, spin your index, insert another shell, raise the ram, and you'll obviously want to go all the way down. Set a primer, spin it over. Now this is where you want to go ahead and make sure you have a bullet. Grab by the feed fingers, start to raise your ram, and get your linkage in. Now, so I get some light on this. Your bullet will be pulled out by the feed fingers, will be placed under the die. Raise your ram all the way up, all the way back down. I'll go ahead and pull this out, show you what it looks like. Make sure there's no letting it all being sheared off. Everything looks good. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is change camera angles, that way you can get a better view of what's actually happened with these 357. Now that we have everything set and ready to go, we'll go ahead and start cranking a few of these puppies out. See how well this 357 setup's actually going to work with what we have in here. Now that we're out of bullets, we can either reload the tube or disconnect our linkage, pull back the feed fingers to just at rest, and then finish off the rounds we have. Now we'll go ahead and take a look, see just how well these came out in that short period of time. Alright, with this little test batch, as you can see, no leading. I did not have my crimp die set up specifically to show what the end result looks like, which is being flared and having the feed fingers work for the bullets. As you can see, everything has a nice consistent height and gap. Of course, when you first start, before everything gets going, you'll have a little bit of height difference, but that's not going to really affect anything once you get going. 30 bullets, 158 grain cast, coated in liquid A-locks. It's set out for a while. See what we can do and see if we can't make this thing mess up. Here we go. 30 rounds. Couple of quick notes when I was trying to do my 30 round speed run. Having this backwards as I instructed before did not quite go so well with the 357. So far it's worked for smaller bullets, like in cases, 380, 9mm, 45, but for whatever reason it just didn't want to play nice, so I flipped it back over, which is technically the way Lee has it installed, and I didn't have any issues. But since we're already at this point, let's say we're done reloading, what you're going to want to do, go ahead and raise the RAM a little bit, and you'll disconnect this linkage. You just go ahead and pull it out, and leave your feed fingers free, and then that's it. You ain't got to worry about these fingers getting opened up or anything like that. If you do have any issues, you can always buy extra ones, or you can dip these in boiling water, squeeze them closed. If you leave them around a bullet or pull back, they'll relax, open up. You won't have any tension at all. Heck, maybe even as a preventative measure, if you wanted extra firm grip on them, you could probably boil them from the factory and squeeze them down. I haven't tried that yet, but hey, you never know. If there's any further questions on the bullet bracket or anything like that, I mean, give me a shout out in the comments, shoot me an email if you have it, or find me on Facebook, send me a private message that way, contact me through eBay if you see the listings up. Right now the first batch of 30 is pretty much gone. I think I've got like 2 or 3 left, waiting on some more to come in. Don't know if there'll be any revision changes at all or not. Yeah, one other thing I forgot. Some people have said that these may be a little tight. You may have to chamfer the bottom. I don't know. I do know that people that do have the safety powder measure set up from Dillon says it works, but again, I don't know why it wouldn't. The geometry is exactly the same. Again, don't use hollow base, concave base bullets, anything like that, or you may have issues. I mean, if there's any questions at all, man, don't hesitate to reach out. I want to thank y'all for taking the time to watch the instructional video I put together. It's actually the first one I've ever done, so hopefully you found it helpful. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If I did, shoot me a message in the comments, private message, send me a message via my eBay account. Again, I want to thank everybody's support in this. Part of the profits is going to support a locally owned disabled veteran who's had a motorcycle shop. They organize runs for Toys for Tots and other veteran groups and stuff as well, to try to collect money and resources to help those people out, which I think is great, and happy to be a part of that. Anybody that sent me a message so far, I should have replied back to everybody. All the brackets but the one off eBay has been sent. Of course, I can't send anything on Sundays. It's going out Monday first thing. If for whatever reason I haven't replied back to a message, or you seem like I'm taking a little bit, I do work minimum 12-hour days, overnights. I do have a home firearms business to run, in addition to at some point trying to see my wife and 3 kids. One of them is a special needs kiddo, so sometimes it does take a little bit out of my day. So I promise y'all I'm not ignoring anybody. I will get back with everybody and try to answer as best I can. Again, I'm hoping this video will cover quite a bit of the common questions I've got, as far as which bullet feeder kit do I need. Again, that's going to be determined by the caliber of the bullet, the height of the bullet. We're mainly talking pistol stuff, 380s, 9s, 40s. I've seen them used on 357 SIGs. You've got 44 mag, pretty much all your basic calibers. I know some people have asked about 45-70, but from what I'm measuring, the bullets are 1 inch high. The max opening on these things is about 3/4 of an inch. I know Lee will make custom ones. You might talk to them. I've been asked about 500 Smith & Wesson, 50 Beowulf, 50 AE. I load for all them calibers too, but unfortunately, if I was to try to bore one out, I'm going to be within a few thousandths of hitting the back side of the threads. That and the biggest tube that they have, a 50 caliber round or projectile is just not going to go down it right now. I do have plans in the future to adapt a RCBS bullet feeder, maybe a Hornady bullet feeder, just whenever I can get the money and, you know, get one and see if we can't do that. That we can maybe add a little more efficiency to this bullet feeder instead of having to run them all by hand. That's definitely in the works. I do want to thank Chris Clark of Bexley Industries here in Mineral Wells, Texas for all the CNC cutting. So if y'all need something laser cut, you got an idea on paper, this guy can draw it up, cut it out. I mean, he's excellent to deal with, very fair on pricing. I mean, give the guy a shout. Also want to thank Alex Fanini. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your last name right. I want to just thank you for allowing us to finish these brackets and to produce and distribute these in the USA. Again, I look forward to working with you in the future and some of the other projects you have coming out. Again, I can't thank you enough on that one. And again, if anybody has any further questions or comments, I'm here. And you know, I'm an individual. I want to treat people like an individual, how I want to be treated. I think that's about the only way we as people are going to survive in this world. You know, man, just the golden rule. I mean, that's it, man. Try to live by that. Everybody be happy. So again, I appreciate any feedback, the support, everything else. So I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to get some sleep, hopefully, and I'll be here to answer more questions whenever I wake up. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one. Be safe. Bye.